insulin goes up. Insulin says, well, I've got to put it somewhere. So the easiest place for it to put it, if there's any excess sugar in the blood, is just to drive it into fat cells. The fat cells blow up or even start to multiply, and then you get fat. So Dr. Atkins figured out, hey, if we can do something to reduce insulin, but more specifically, reduce our need for excess insulin, then we won't have all this insulin floating around forcing us to build up fat stores. And it works beautifully for some people.
Okay.
Only if the other side of the whole process, the cortisol side, is also kept in check or kept in balance. So if you're healthy, if your adrenal glands are strong, and you can make cortisol real effectively, and then you go on this low carbohydrate diet, the extremely low, like Dr. Atkins says,
right.
your insulin starts to drop, and boom, you just start liberating fat. You're not storing fat anymore, and everything is wonderful. You lose weight like crazy, and you don't even lose any muscle tissue.
Which is an important factor on some diets where you go on a low-fat diet, and it affects you, or one of these goofy Hollywood diets where you wind up restricting yourself of certain foods that you absolutely need, or just food in general,
like the
calories.
The breath mint and salad diet.
Oh, I don't even know. Do they have that? There's so many.
Didn't Oprah go on a lettuce and breath mint diet for a while?
I don't know. I need one. I need it right now.
Yeah, you do.
So, but what you do is you wind up losing muscle, and then when you lose muscle, what else happens? You wind up gaining fat later on. Although the scale changes, and it's important for people to know that. I've had people on my cleanse program who said, George, I only lost 3 pounds. Okay, but did you check your inches? See, that's what I think is more important. Check your inches, how many inches you lose. Look at the clothes, how your clothes fit.
How do your pants fit?
How do your pants fit? What are people saying? And you write them back and they say, oh yeah, well, I dropped 3 pant sizes. Okay, who cares if it was a half of an ounce that you lost? I don't care. How about how do you look? Let's get back to how we look and how we feel and being healthy. But with that said, let's move on. Is Dr. Atkins finished?
Well, really, yeah. So the bottom line, this is the first one I wanted to introduce because it's kind of the most drastic, that only focuses on just one side of the issue. It really takes care of the insulin side, but yet the cortisol side isn't addressed at all. One thing that happens when you eat no carbohydrates at all, and I tell my patients this, you're actually stimulating your adrenal glands. So it acts like a stress. If you eat just a big steak, you know, the steak and potatoes and salad, if you eat just a big steak, although there's no carbohydrate, so you don't stimulate insulin very much, you are stimulating cortisol. But if you include just a little bit of carbohydrate with that meal, and it could be just some carrots or some tomatoes or some berries, then you don't get that big spike in your stress response or your cortisol production.
Right.
So eating like Atkins actually works just like a stressor, just like long-term aerobics or just like traffic or just like the other stressors. Over time, it will wear out your adrenal glands because it's constantly making you produce too much cortisol.
Now, we know, or I know through my research, that it's important to have a fat with a carbohydrate to help balance it out so you don't get an insulin spike. However, if you're a person who's abused your pancreas over many years and it doesn't work effectively as it should or could, and you wind up introducing that fat with a carbohydrate, it'll have no effect whatsoever in a positive manner because you've got to fix that pancreas.
Now, are you talking about somebody who's borderline diabetic?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I could go along with that.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody who's abused their pancreas over many, many years, and they have borderline diabetes, they're pre-diabetic or they are diabetic.
Yeah.
So now you're not. So basically, the reason I bring that up is because just because Dr. Webster mentioned a certain diet that might be good for us or something to stick by or learn from, doesn't mean it's going to work for you because you have a specific issue that needs to be addressed. So one diet will never ever work for everybody. That's why I've said this so many years, ever since I started this show almost 13 years ago. Nobody can write a diet book. It can't be done. Well, it's been done, but it can't be done where it works for everybody because everybody's got different issues that have to be addressed.
Right. It's beautiful that what you said was you took the exact opposite approach of what I was just talking about earlier. I was talking about the person who had the adrenal problem.
Right.
They go on the Atkins and they lose weight for a while, but they burn out their adrenal glands. But
for insulin.
But what you were talking about is the other approach. The Atkins might be the perfect diet for the guy you're talking about who has pancreatic fatigue, we'll say, or almost, or maybe they are diabetic. For someone like that, they've got to get the diabetes under control, which means sugar and insulin. So for them, Atkins may be absolutely perfect because they can even reverse some of that diabetes effect that they've got.
Right. We will not have time to get into all the other ones, but there's one I have to address right now is the HCG diet. That's the one
Yes.
that's the most popular. It's the latest one, and I really need to make sure we get that in right now. There's this goofy diet that a goofy medical doctor came up with called the HCG diet.
Right.
I sent you notes on it. Do you want to just like throw up on people right now so I can talk about my stuff with it?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me just say the background. HCG is just a chemical. It's found predominantly in pregnant women. It's a chemical that you release when you're pregnant, that females release when they're pregnant, and it helps you liberate fat so that it can go in circulation, and the fetus can use it to make energy, or to use the fat for creating their brain and their tissues. It's basically just liberating fat in the mom to help the baby. There is a little bit of HCG in non-pregnant women as well as males, but I'm not really even aware of any function of HCG other than in pregnancy.
So, number one, the HCG diet says you have to inject yourself with HCG.
Right. Thinking that it'll help anyone liberate their fat.
Right. Now, I know that when it was made from pregnant women's urine, that it did help people. That's number one. It's not anymore.
Okay.
Okay, it's synthetically made, but it's supposedly not going to hurt you, but it's not been FDA approved. Here's the kicker with this whole goofy diet. They say the claim is that you'll lose 1 to 2 pounds a day, at the very least a half a pound a day, at the very most 3 pounds a day. And they say that factors that guarantee faster weight loss, and this is revolutionary, Dr. Webster. You've never heard of this? I'm going to teach you something.
Okay.
Everybody listening to the show, even Jim Judd, who's a fantastic clinical nutritionist, he's never heard of this before. Here's what they say. Factors that guarantee faster weight loss include increasing vegetable intake and mixing salads with each meal. You never heard of that?
Wow. Breakthrough, right?
Breakthrough
Right.
on the HCG diet. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Here is what a day will look like that they say you can or should eat. Tea or coffee in any quantity without sugar.
Okay.
Cortisol stress response. Just
Right.
talked about it. This is a great segue to this goofy thing.
Sure.
1 tablespoon of milk allowed in 24 hours with saccharin
All right.
or
There you
stevia.
go. Okay.
Okay, there's a whole host of problems for breakfast. That's all you get, by the way.
Okay.
Alrighty then.
Now cortisol's spiking for you.
Okay, lunch. 100 grams of veal, beef, chicken breast, fresh white fish, lobster, crab, or shrimp.
Wait.
100 grams.
100 grams.
Yeah, let me keep going. All visible fat must be carefully removed before cooking, and the meat must be weighed raw. Boil or grill without additional fat. Excuse me. Here's number 2. That's one meal for lunch idea.
Okay.
Here's number 2. One type of vegetable only to be chosen from the following: spinach. I can't even pronounce some of these. Chard?
Chard.
Never even heard of it.
It's just like lettuce.
Okay, beet, greens,
Okay.
tomatoes, celery, fennel, onions, radish, whatever, some other stuff.
All basically like lettuce.
That's number 2.
Okay.
It's either or. Here's number 3. One breadstick.
Okay.
Can I get a to-go box with that?
That's just your meal.
Yeah.
So what's the total calorie count on this?
500 calories per day.
Per day.
Per day.
Okay. And they're saying you're going to lose weight if you eat 500.
Not they. An idiot medical doctor. There is no they. Okay? This is a person who went to medical school to fix people who are hurt, fix people who have issues that need to be addressed. But this is what I was getting at. And I talked about this on my we got to go to commercial, but I talked about this on Facebook. And I wrote about it on my blog. Go to 21daybodymakeover.com and read my blog that I wrote yesterday about the crossover effect. It's negatively affecting, in the future, professions that are trying to gain more money.
Yeah.
And I don't think they recognize this. It's almost like you have somebody who's a cheap car salesman. They only care about the car today versus a Rolls Royce salesman who cares about you for life.
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
I want to continue on talking about the HCG diet and the dangers of it, don't do it, and the rebound effect, the backfire that you talked about earlier. We'll talk about that coming up next with Dr. Webster. We also have Tina Burnett calling in with the fitness tip of the week. It's 746 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. So we're talking about the HCG diet. It's the latest blah, blah, blah diet, and that you should or shouldn't use, why you shouldn't use it. And we talked about why you shouldn't use it. Dr. Webster,
what are some of the side effects?
I want to talk about some of the side effects real fast of the HCG diet if you're thinking about doing it. Some of the